This episode brought to you by coconut oil. Use it to clean your teeth. Use it to clean your gut. Use it to moisturize your hands. Use it to make things taste like coconut. Use it to feel like a bougie housewife. Use it when you would use any other oil. Use it to feel like somebody on a health journey. Start your tropical island journey by using the promo code HannahTheHuman to get $40 million off your next coconut oil purchase. That's Hannah the Human for coconut oil. Let's hit that theme song. Oh, nice. We're going for like existential vibes. Hannah. Hannah the Human. I can get down with it. Get down with it. Get down with it. Well, I thought I was going to talk about this subject, I don't know, further on in the future. I was thinking that I would get to doing interviews and things like that, but I just want to talk more about me. Well, it's not just talking about me. As you can see how I've titled this episode, or will title it, however you look at it, it's about grief. And I was thinking about this because someone I know recently lost their father, their dad, and they were openly sharing about some of the practical things of what it was just like after that first 24 hours, of losing her dad. And just, it immediately took me back to things that I have put out of the forefront of my mind around when I lost my brother. I've mentioned it before, but basically, my brother died when I was 12. He was 10, and he had been sick ever since he was 2 from a genetic disease. So it actually runs in the family. It's very rare if it actually happens because basically both parents have to be carriers, which means they somehow have to have the gene for it, but it not be dominant. And both of my parents obviously were carriers. And then there's still only a 25% chance that one of their kids will get the disease. So on kid number 3, he got the disease. My parents didn't know that they were both carriers. They knew my dad was because his sister died from this disease, but they didn't think my mom was. However, apparently she is a carrier of this disease, and it's called MLD. I'm not going to go look up the full name for it. It's something Leuker whatever dystrophy. And basically the summary of it is those with this disease do not produce an enzyme that eats away at fatty acid that builds up on the end of our nerves. And so the connection between the brain and the nerves and the body and all the different functions that make your body work slowly gets worse and worse and worse until the person dies. So it is a currently incurable disease, although I do know that they are trying different gene therapy options of literally going in and changing people's DNA or giving them that enzyme or whatever they're missing. I don't quite know. I've just heard a few things because my grandma kind of looks up about it every once in a while. She's into medicine and stuff. She used to be a nurse. And so basically people are trying new therapies and whatever. But when my brother got diagnosed, it was basically a death sentence. And I don't remember any of this because I'm only 2 years older than my brother. So he was 2 when it started being apparent that his body wasn't functioning the same as other 2-year-olds. And also my grandma noticed these signs, which, man, that must have been tough for her because it's literally takes her flashback to her daughter, my dad's older sister, getting sick. And I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for her to be just flooded with that remembrance and the anxiety that, oh no, is my grandson have the same thing that my daughter had. But basically, to put a bow on what I'm trying to say at this moment, basically, my brother was diagnosed and then slowly lost his ability to walk and talk. And I was 4 years old when this is all starting, and he was totally unable to walk or talk or move. He just could like breathe and sort of smile, and he could still swallow. A lot of kids lose that ability, but he was able to swallow still and stuff at age 4. Everything was kind of like, I wouldn't say he's in a vegetative state, but he was pretty close to it at age 4. And so I'm 6. So I'm not one of those people who can remember vividly their early years. So I have one very vague memory of playing hide and go seek when I think he was probably 3 and I was 5. And we were hiding, me and my twin sister and my brother Levi, who, by the way, we all called Buddy as a nickname. So if you hear me mention Buddy versus Levi, same person, just one's a nickname. This memory is that we're under hiding we were playing flashlight hide and seek. So we all had these flashlights that were shaped like animals, like where you basically hit a button and then the mouth opens and the light shines. So super cute. And we each had our own little animal flashlights. So we would hide with those in the dark. And then our dad would come around and with a flashlight and be like, I'm going to find you. But we had our flashlights on us. So if ever we got scared of the dark, we could just turn them on and it wouldn't be dark. So adorable. I remember we had this bench in our entryway that we would sit on to put our shoes on or take them off or things like that. And we were hiding under that bench, me and my twin sister and my brother Levi. It's this vague memory. I can't remember what Levi said, but I just remember him talking. And that's the only memory I have of interacting with my brother. All the other memories I have are just looking at pictures, basically, and being like, oh, okay. I guess that's what happened, so they're not real memories. And then I do have plenty of memories when he wasn't walking or talking, but none that I interacted with my brother, that I felt like I had a brother. Except for that one memory. So I'm really grateful for that, actually. And I love hearing stories of my parents and my grandparents telling me about my brother's personality and who he was before he lost his ability to communicate, because he actually was able to talk at a very early age. And so he would tell stories, and we actually have some videos, too, of him talking at like 18 months before he was starting to get sick and stuff. And so I say all that just to give you a picture of what it was like for me. It wasn't this experience when I lost my brother. It wasn't like, oh, everything's normal and then suddenly a car accident or something tragic happens. It's this progression of knowing my brother isn't doing well and he's slowly getting worse and worse, but I also don't realize that. And so it's this whole kind of like elongated trauma of having a special needs person in your family. And it is beautiful in the way of, I'm so glad I didn't experience that tragic, sudden kind of loss. I know people who have, and I just, man, that is something else, people who lose freak accidents, lose their siblings or loved ones. In a way, the process of slowly dying, to put it bluntly, is beautiful and easier in a sense, but also presents its own host of difficulties because it isn't a final death, right? You just are slowly losing certain aspects and you're slowly being presented with different ways and things that you need to grieve. So, of course, I'm not aware of this as a kid, just in looking back and having to process a lot of it and then seeing other people who have special needs, family members, and realizing, oh, wait, is that how it was for me? And then imagining, oh, that must have been what it was like as me as a kid, like giving myself permission to basically feel the feelings that I didn't feel as a kid because we were just kind of in survival mode, and you're a kid and you don't pay attention to these things. You don't, as a 7-year-old, you don't sit and say, wow, I'm really being given a lot of responsibility above and beyond what is usually given to children my age, because I'm the oldest of a family who has a sick brother who is 5 years old and has to be taken care of by my mom. And so I am giving less attention than other 7-year-olds by their moms, perhaps. Now, I wasn't thinking about that. But also it kind of makes sense why I was writing songs at 10 years old saying, oh God, how long until I'm satisfied? I guess that trauma had to go out somewhere. But all this to say, let me take it back to, I'm on Instagram seeing that my friend lost her dad, and she's just sharing about, hey, we're doing fine. It's a big shock. Kind of had to watch movies until we fell asleep at 4 a.m, and all the family crowded together in the living room. And that took me right back to when my brother died. He died at our house because basically, since the medical field's answer to my brother's sickness was, oh, well, we can give him certain things that will help him die easier, or you can hospitalize him. Basically, my parents chose to go a totally non-medical route, which had its pros and its cons. And I've had to process through many of the cons, but I'm also grateful for the pros. And the pros are that we got to be a tight-knit family and do a lot of things together. That wouldn't have been possible if my brother was hooked up to a bunch of machines or at a hospital or any of that. And so one of the beautiful things of this kind of more natural way of dealing with this disease is that my brother died in our living room. And for some people that might not seem beautiful. For me, it is beautiful because it was in the safety of our own home. There was no pressure on how to deal with it. We just were there in the moment. I was the one who called my dad and said, hey, Dad, Levi stopped breathing. And my dad immediately left work. It was like a 12-minute drive, got to our home. Levi was dead by then, in my mom's arms. I know this is really sad, but, that's what happened. And I was just screaming and crying like, why, God, And at the same time, I also felt the finality of it, of, okay, this is the end. And it was just a weird time of shock. It's almost like you have to tell yourself to eat, tell yourself to do all these things like sleeping, breathing, going outside, drinking water, because it's just a whole mode of shock. A loss like that, of losing somebody's presence from their body, Levi's body was still there, laying on the couch in the living room, but Levi wasn't there. And that's a very I keep using the word shocking because that's how it felt to my system. Just a shock, just a paralysis of, hold up, life just stopped for my brother. How does life keep going for me? It's more than just losing that person. When it's in your family unit, it's a whole shift on what the family dynamic is. And so there's been lots of things I've grieved over the years because it's been over 10 years now. Wow, this year it'll be 12 years since this event happened in my life and in the lives of my family. And I've processed losing the hope of ever getting to be a quote normal brother and sister relationship. I've processed the grief of not having a brother that I get to communicate, of not knowing his personality, of not getting to do things that siblings do, right? Who would you be like? How would I be relating to you as if I had a brother who functioned normally? And so I've had to grieve that, of just losing forever the hope of having a companion, a brother, a friend. And I've had to grieve just losing who he was, the presence, which that wasn't that hard for me because, he just kind of sat there in the chairs and, my mom did all the work of feeding him and whatever. So my relationship with him wasn't that much, but I still did have to grieve. You lose that person, you lose that human being, that life, that presence in your home. I've also had to grieve my loss of innocent faith in everything working out. I just grew up thinking, why doesn't God just fix his body? Like, if God can do anything, if God made the world, God can just make his body right. And that crumbled when it didn't go as I planned, And some people may look on and say, well, that's dumb. You should just accept, like, God doesn't heal, or that crazy stuff doesn't always happen. But some crazy stuff happens for some people. And so it was devastating that I wasn't the one chosen to get the crazy stuff happening to. And yeah, so I've had to grieve my relationship with God, my relationship with faith, with belief, with trust. I've also had to grieve the loss of my mom. In a sense, my mom didn't die. Okay, let me clarify that. My mom is alive and well, I think. No, she's well. Oh, she's been through her own roller coaster. Because, man, if I've had to process this stuff and I'm the sister of the sick kid, imagine the pain that my mom has had to process. Oh, my gosh. It's just insane. And so it was really tough on my mom. So I've also had to process the grief of not having a mom who's as aware of my needs and emotionally and physically there. She's taking care of this kid all the time who needs her help more than I do. I mean, he can't feed himself. I can. Yeah, so she wasn't physically as available as I would want her to be, or emotionally as available as I would want her to be, especially after the death of Levi. I mean, one of the ways that she coped with the pain is she starved herself. We didn't know that really. We just viewed it as like, oh yeah, she just loves jogging in place, and I couldn't remember the last time she ate with us at a meal. So I think she kept herself alive by binging at night. Again, that's her story. I'm sharing mine, and how it relates to her is basically, I had to grieve that mother dynamic that we all long for, a safe person to process with the difficulty, or process through the difficulty with, She was, instead of being a safe person that I could process this grief with, we were all in the midst of it. And so we were all just floundering and shocked and numb and emotional and frozen. And basically all these contrasts were in it all together, just trying to survive. And so that's a whole nother thing you have to grieve, right? I just keep focusing on the word grieve in this because that's what I got so present to when I saw that post on Instagram of my friend's loss of her father. It just took me right back to the inability we have to fix situations and to fix ourselves and to fix others. It's just, that's the thing about death. That's the thing about any loss. It just shows how ineffective control is. And I'm emotional thinking about this and being present to it. Being present to that moment when you lose that person, and yet you're glad that their struggle is over. You're glad they aren't sick anymore. You're glad they're not fighting for their next breath. And I can say 11 and a half years later, life goes on. And not in this dull, numb way, but it's really awesome. And you get to a point where you give yourself permission to laugh again. And you give yourself permission to laugh without a jab of pain, thinking about the person you love who isn't with you. And I cry because it hurts. Just thinking about that process and about what this family is going through losing their dad, It's not comfortable. It's terrible. And nobody wishes it on anybody else. And yet it's so real. There's nothing artificial about it. When you're just sitting there in the pain, in the confusion, in the duality, the laughing about memories and the sobbing your heart out because of the empty bed, when you're just in that, you're fully alive. Looking from a vantage point of not being in that moment anymore, I can say that there's an aching beauty to it all. And there's a heaviness in my heart that I feel because I remember the journey it took for me to get this far. And I think, man, what's it going to be like for that family? Like, they've got to go through a lot of valleys of shadows of death. And I have so much hope without any need to fix or change that situation. You know, it was the well-meaning but very unhelpful words of people that were very difficult to deal with. Because what do you say? Like, oh, so sorry. Oh, he's in a better place. Like, people don't know what to say when you are in that much sadness and loss and transition and pain. And so what I would say to me, Hannah, at 12 years old, going through that harsh moment, is I would just say, you're going to be okay. And there's going to be a lot of hard moments. And I'd say this to anybody who is dealing with any type of grief. There's nothing I can say that's going to fix it. There's nothing that you can do that's going to make it better. And yet, I do believe in the magic of each new day and each breath, that in the end, life is what you're left with. Even though death makes its mark, even though sadness imprints itself upon your soul, the mark that stays, the mark that becomes ever more present as time goes on, is joy, love, connection, gratitude. And there's no way to those experiences that we call positive without fully embracing the pain, without fully embracing the experiences we call negative. And if you know anybody going through a hard time or grief, for what it's worth, my advice would be just admit that it's really awkward and you don't know what to say and you don't know how to help, but for what it's worth, you're there. And it's so weird how you can be having fun, playing a game, watching a movie, and simultaneously feel like your world has fallen apart. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's going to scar you forever. But who said scars were bad? You'd be 19 now when I turned 22. Would you be moved out by now? Would you be in school? 'Cause I remember when we were just kids, sitting beside you wondering what was in your head. But even without the words I never had the time to say, even without the memories we never got to make, we're connected, wrapped in the grace of learning to love and wait here in the silence on the other side of hell. Would you up to my place? Would we go to your friend's house and share a couple drinks? I imagine it'd be easy to laugh, and you'd be who I called when I needed to feel safe. But even without the words I never had the time to say, even without the memories we never got to make, we're connected, wrapped in the grace of learning to love and wait here in the silence on the other side of heaven. 2 years have flown by. I turned 24. Just like that, the living flows until it flows no more. Each day is a treasure and the breaking is a gift. So I'll ache once more as I sing this. Sing this, even without the words I never had the time to say, even without the memories we never got to make. We're connected, wrapped in the grace of learning to love and wait, learning to love and wait, learning to love and wait here in the silence on the other side of heaven. Well, there is a song I wrote, and here I am, 11 and a half years after my brother died in our living room. People like to say a lot of nice terms like passed away, breathed his last, or whatever. People moved on, is no longer with us. I prefer the term died. But use whatever one works for you, honestly. I'm just not one to sugarcoat it, you know? Because sugar is nice. But I was trying to think of something witty to say, but I couldn't. So here I am, 11 and a half years later, after the world as I knew it fell apart. And I'm doing good. I'm sitting on my teal couch in my studio apartment, looking out my sliding glass door at, ironically, the cemetery memorial that I take walks in. While I've been talking, there was a car that pulled up and a lady visiting a grave site that has a bunch of red and yellow. I can't tell what it is from here, but it looks like a loved grave site with a little tree, maybe a little bench. And to my left is a antique Coca-Cola glass. I got it at a flea market. It used to have milk in it, but I drank it. I drank the milk with my slice of homemade sourdough bread that I buttered well with Kerrygold Irish grass-fed butter, the best butter I know, and no one can convince me otherwise. I love that stuff. And I slathered a slice of sourdough with it and washed it down with some milk. And I felt so proud of myself. That's the good life, honestly, to be drinking sweet, whole milk from organically raised, grass-fed cows, and to be taking a bite of bread I made with this magical thing called a sourdough starter that makes everything wonderful in life. That too is living. Living. Life. Numb on the carpet of your living room floor. Crying because you don't know what else to do. Life. Sitting in the sunshine, eating a carrot, breathing in the morning air. Life. It's good. Also, I do want to use this opportunity. If you want to support the family that inspired me kind of talking about grief and getting present to some of the emotions and things that have happened in my life. And yeah, if you want to support that family, I'm going to link in my bio a GoFundMe campaign that will go directly to supporting that family and the medical bills and everything else that they have going on, as well as, providing for them to live in this transitional time. And yeah, I really would love if you would, if you would share that link with people so that we can come around and support this family. And I don't have many people who listen to this podcast at all, but each of you has a friend or 2 friends or 3 friends or 4. And so let those people know, send them the link, and let's all donate like $20. That's like 4 affordable coffees. Take a month of coffees or a week or how long it takes you to drink 4 affordable coffees. And let's give that towards this family in need as a tangible way to say, hey, we're with you in the process. Because when I look back at what I needed during the time of shock and grief and transition, it was just people proving to me that I was not alone. And for anybody who is dealing with grief, or maybe this podcast just brought up some things that you haven't visited in a while and maybe have some emotions and things you want to process, I just want to tell you that whatever you feel, whatever you're going through, it's okay. And you've got it. And you're awesome. And you're not the only person who deals with tough stuff. You're doing better than you think you are. And with that, all the peace out.